I was her professor. She was the daughter of the woman I once loved in secret. The moment she walked into my classroom, I felt the floor shift beneath me. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. That the past was buried. That my marriage was solid. But the way she looked at me, curious, unafraid, almost like she already knew everything, that's when I realized. This wasn't about a class. This was about unfinished business. And now I was caught between a ghost, and a temptation I never saw coming. To all my returning subscribers, thank you, you're the heartbeat of this channel. Your likes, comments, and shares keep these real-life emotional journeys alive. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next shocking, romantic, or heartbreaking chapter. Your support helps me bring more bold, raw, and unforgettable stories, just like this one. My name is Nathan Pierce. I'm 44, married, and I've been teaching literature at Hawthorne University for the last 15 years. Most days in my life are predictable: papers to grade, lectures to deliver, the occasional committee meeting that goes nowhere. I liked that routine. I depended on it. Until the day she walked in. It was a warm September afternoon. The kind that makes students feel too lazy to learn. My lecture hall was filled with sleepy eyes, clacking keyboards, and the scent of overpriced coffee. I stood at the podium flipping through the roll call sheet. Then I said her name. Aubrey Callahan. A moment of silence. Then I heard her voice from the back. Here. Calm. Clear. Confident. I looked up, and my stomach dropped. She didn't look exactly like her mother. Her face was sharper, more youthful. But the resemblance was there. The shape of her eyes. The way she tilted her head with quiet defiance. And that mouth, curved like she was always holding back a secret. My mind rewound almost 15 years in an instant, to Elena Callahan. Aubrey's mother. My first true weakness. My first major mistake. A secret relationship that ended with a slammed door and tears we never talked about. She died in a car accident a few years ago, or so I'd heard. Now her daughter was sitting in the third row of my classroom, casually flipping open her notebook like none of it mattered. I cleared my throat and moved down the list, but my voice was off. I knew it. The students didn't notice, but I felt my hands shaking slightly. What the hell was she doing here? After class, I tried to escape without making eye contact, but I felt her presence behind me. She followed me up the aisle and stopped just before I reached my office. Professor Pierce. I turned. She smiled, small, knowing. I just wanted to say. I know who you are. My blood ran cold. She didn't say anything else. Just walked away, her curls bouncing slightly with each step. I stood frozen in the hallway, trying to breathe. Cross mark. That night, I couldn't sleep. My wife Claire asked me if I was okay. I told her I was tired. That was partially true. But the other truth was clawing at me, louder by the minute. Aubrey knows. Was she here because of me? Did she enroll at Hawthorne just to see me? Did she hate me for what I did to her mother? Or worse, was she curious? I tried to convince myself it was a coincidence. Maybe she just liked literature. Maybe I was just another professor to her. But then came Thursday. After class, she came to my office. Stood at the door until I looked up. Got a minute? I hesitated. Sure. She sat across from me, legs crossed, chewing on the cap of her pen. You were with my mom, weren't you? No hesitation. No shame. I closed my eyes for a second. Aubrey, this isn't something we should talk about. She never talked about you, she said. But I found her journals after she died. She called you N a lot. At first, I thought it was my dad. But then I kept reading. And one day I saw your name. I rubbed my forehead, suddenly feeling older than I was. She was a good woman, I said quietly. But what happened between us, it's in the past. Aubrey nodded, then smiled again, almost teasing. So why do you still look at me like that? I didn't have an answer. The days that followed were worse. Every time she raised her hand in class, every time she lingered after lectures, I felt my composure slipping. I knew I had to set boundaries. I told myself I would. But I didn't. She started coming during office hours. At first to ask questions about literature. But then the conversations drifted into her childhood, her mother, my favorite authors, her dreams. She had a way of making me forget the line between student and man. Between past and present. One afternoon, she leaned across my desk and asked. Did you love her? I couldn't lie. Yes. She watched me for a long second, then nodded slowly. Okay. And left. It was the way she said okay that chilled me. Like she was filing something away for later. Like she was building something in her mind, and I didn't know what. At home, Claire noticed I was distracted. You're working too hard, she said one evening as she poured herself a glass of wine. You need a break, Nathan. I nodded. Smiled. Lied. But my thoughts were on Aubrey Callahan. And how the past wasn't staying buried. She had become a storm. One I wasn't ready for. One I helped create. And deep down, I think I knew, this wasn't going to stay academic for long. When you live with guilt long enough, it becomes quiet. It sinks into your bones, gets lost in the shuffle of daily routines. Until something, or someone, drags it back to the surface. For me, that someone was Aubrey Callahan. Every time she walked into my office, it felt less like a conversation and more like a test. A test I kept failing. I had every reason to shut the door on her questions, her presence, her entire enrollment in my class, but I didn't. Maybe part of me wanted to be close to her. Maybe part of me needed to feel something again. Or maybe I just missed Elena, her mother, more than I ever admitted. It was a Thursday. Late afternoon. The campus was quiet, golden sunlight filtering through my office blinds. Aubrey showed up unannounced. She leaned against the doorframe like she belonged there. You busy? She asked. I probably should be, I said with a dry laugh. But come in. She stepped in, shut the doors softly behind her, and dropped into the chair across from me like we were old friends. I've been thinking about her a lot lately, she said, not even waiting for small talk. My mom. I swallowed. So have I. She studied me. You never came to the funeral. That hit harder than I expected. I didn't think I'd be welcome, I said quietly. Not after how things ended between us. You were part of her life, Nathan. First time she used my first name. She wrote about you in ways I've never seen her write about anyone. A pause. The air shifted. She said you were the only man who ever truly understood her, Aubrey continued. But that you left because you were afraid. She was digging into things I had buried years ago. But the worst part? She was right. She wanted more than I could give her back then, I confessed. I was young. Married. Caught between who I was and who I wanted to be. I didn't leave because I didn't care. I left because I didn't know how to stay. Aubrey didn't flinch. She looked like she'd been expecting that answer. You broke her heart. I know. Silence stretched between us. A long, heavy silence. Then she said something I didn't expect. She wasn't perfect, you know. My mom. She looked down at her hands. She could be selfish. Distant. But she loved you. I loved her too. Do you still? Her eyes flicked back to mine. I didn't know how to answer. Not because the feeling was gone, but because, in a strange way, it had shifted. The more time I spent with Aubrey, the more I couldn't tell if I was chasing her mother's memory, or something else entirely. The visits became more frequent. Office hours, hallway run-ins, occasional emails that had nothing to do with class. I tried to draw the line. But every time I started to, she would say something like, "You're the only one who gets what I'm feeling." Or, "You remind me of her, but you're softer somehow." She was playing a dangerous game. And I was letting her. One afternoon, she brought in a journal, Elena's old notebook. She set it on my desk without a word. I didn't touch it. "I thought maybe you'd want to read it." "Aubrey, I don't think that's a good idea." "Why?" "Because we're already standing on the edge of something neither of us should fall into." She smirked. "You always did talk like a poet." I looked at her, really looked. She was so much her mother's daughter, but she was also her own person. Sharper. More daring. And the way she looked at me didn't feel like a student admiring a professor. It felt like a woman studying a man she wanted to undo. That night, I took the journal home. I told Claire I was working on student essays. She nodded, too busy texting her team about some deadline to notice how distracted I was. I sat in my study and read Elena's words for the first time in over a decade. There were pages about me. About our secret meetings. About the guilt. About the nights we spent in that lake house before it all went to hell. But what hit me hardest was this line. "He'll never choose me, but I'll always love him for the way he made me feel, seen." I closed the journal and stared at the wall for a long time. Maybe it was too late for Elena. But with Aubrey now in my world, I felt like I was being asked to answer for the things I ran from. And I wasn't sure I had the strength to keep running. The next time she came to my office, she didn't knock. She just walked in and said, "What did you think?" "It was painful," I answered. "But honest." She stepped closer than she ever had before. "That's the thing about truth," she whispered. "It either frees you, or destroys you." Then she reached out and touched my hand. It was brief. Barely a second. But it was enough to tell me everything I didn't want to admit. I should have pulled away. I should have reminded her of the rules, the ethics, the power dynamics. I should have walked out of that room and never looked back. But I didn't. Because some ghosts don't haunt you. They seduce you. And some shadows don't fade. They grow darker. There's a moment, right before you make a terrible decision, when the world seems quiet. Still. You feel the gravity shift. You feel the line bend. And deep down, you know, once you cross it, nothing will ever be the same. For me, that moment came on a Wednesday night in October. It started with an email from Aubrey. Subject, "One last question." Message, "Office hours say you're available. I'll only need 5 minutes. Promise." I stared at it for a while. I could have ignored it. Should have. But I didn't. I replied. "Fine. 5 minutes." She arrived at 6:47 p.m. Most of the building was already empty. The halls were dark, quiet. That eerie after-hours stillness that makes every sound feel louder than it is. She stepped into my office without knocking. "Thanks for seeing me." "5 minutes," I said, trying to sound stern, even though I already knew I'd let her stay longer. She wore a black sweater, fitted jeans, and her hair pulled up. No makeup this time. Just her. Raw and unfiltered. The kind of beauty you don't comment on, not out loud. She sat across from me and didn't say anything at first. Just looked around the room, like she was memorizing it. Then she said, "Do you think she ever knew how much she messed me up?" It took me a second to realize she meant her mother. "She tried," I answered. But no. I don't think she ever really saw how deep it went. Aubrey nodded slowly, biting her lip. You know, I came here to understand her better, she said. But I didn't expect to start, seeing you. Aubrey. Not like that, she cut in quickly. At first, I just wanted to put the puzzle together. You were a missing piece. But now. She looked down, then back up. Now, I think I'm the one breaking all the rules. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling through my nose. We can't do this. Then why haven't you stopped me? She stood up. Took a slow step toward my desk. Do I scare you? I didn't answer. She stepped closer. The space between us was gone. Or is it her ghost that scares you? It's you, I finally said. My voice low. Honest. She reached out, gently touching the edge of my sleeve. I'm not her, Nathan. I looked up. Met her eyes. But I remember her in you, I whispered. Then let me be something else. I don't remember standing. I just remember her hand on my chest. The smell of her hair, lavender and ink. Her breath close to mine. And then. We kissed. Not rushed. Not wild. But slow. Deliberate. Like we were erasing the past with our mouths. I knew what I was doing. I knew I was married. I knew she was my student. I knew everything. And I still let it happen. Her hand slid behind my neck, pulling me closer. I kissed her harder than I meant to. She gasped, and I stepped back, finally catching my breath. This can't happen, I said, half to her, half to myself. But it already did, she whispered. After that moment, we didn't speak. She walked out without another word. And I stood in the dark, listening to my heartbeat pounding in my ears. What had I done? That night, Claire noticed I didn't eat much. Rough day? She asked. Long. I couldn't look her in the eyes. She came around the table and kissed the top of my head. You work too hard. You need to relax more. I nodded. Then went to bed with a stomach full of guilt, and lips that still remembered someone else. The next day in class, Aubrey didn't speak once. She didn't raise her hand. She didn't meet my eyes. But when she walked past me at the end, she slipped a folded note into my hand. No one saw. I waited until my office was locked, and I opened it. It read. We can pretend it didn't happen if you want. But I won't lie to myself about what I felt. You can be afraid. I'll be the brave one. Aubrey. That was the moment I knew I'd lost control. I had stepped into something far more dangerous than just infidelity. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a connection, twisted by grief, memory, and something neither of us had the strength to resist. And in the shadows of my office, I realized. I had become the man I promised I'd never be. There's a point when a secret stops being thrilling and starts becoming a burden. A heavy, suffocating thing that sits on your chest, morning, noon, and night. That was where I was now. Aubrey and I hadn't spoken since the kiss. Not in class. Not in person. But the silence between us wasn't peaceful, it was charged. She was always there. Third row. Hair tied back. Eyes steady. And every time she looked at me, I felt like I was being dragged back into something I just barely escaped. I started shortening my lectures. Avoiding eye contact. Telling myself this was how I took control. But deep down, I knew I had already lost it. Then came the faculty mixer. Once a month, the university forced us all into the same room with cheap wine, finger foods, and meaningless small talk. Normally, I showed up late, left early. But this time, I went to prove to myself that I still had a grip on my world. Claire came with me. She wore a navy dress and looked beautiful, sharp, polished. The kind of woman who never missed a detail. We were sipping wine when Daniel Morgan, my colleague from the English department, walked up with a strange smile. "Nate," he said, nodding. "Can I borrow you for a quick word?" I stepped aside with him, leaving Claire mid-conversation. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. "Why wouldn't I be?" He shrugged. "You just seem tense lately. And word is, one of your students is spending a lot of time in your office." I went cold. "Is that so?" He gave me a long look. "She's young. Beautiful. And smart. And you're not exactly invisible around here. You don't know what you're talking about." "I hope not." His tone wasn't smug. It was serious. "But I'm your friend. And friends warn each other before things spiral." I walked away without saying another word. But my mind was racing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing Daniel's face. The way he looked at me like he already knew. And what if he wasn't the only one? What if Aubrey had said something? What if someone had seen us in my office that night? My paranoia was growing faster than my guilt. Claire noticed. "You've been somewhere else lately," she said from the other side of the bed. "It's just work." "No, it's not. It's something else." She paused. "Is there someone else, Nathan?" The question hit me so hard I almost forgot how to breathe. I turned to her, swallowing the panic. "No. I lied. Of course not." She stared at me for a moment longer, then rolled over and turned out the light. But I couldn't sleep at all. The next day, Aubrey showed up at my office again. No appointment. No email. Just walked in like she owned the moment. "You've been avoiding me," she said. "I'm trying to fix this before it gets worse." She stepped closer. "But it already is worse. For both of us." I shook my head. "You don't understand." "No, you don't understand," she cut in. Her voice trembling for the first time. "I didn't come back here for a fling. Or some revenge fantasy. I came back here because I didn't know who she was. And you're the only piece of her I have left." I closed my eyes. "Aubrey, you're not your mother. But I look like her, don't I?" She stepped even closer. "Do I kiss like her too?" That stopped me cold. "Don't," I said. "Why not?" she whispered. "You want to. I know you do." I stepped back, trying to gather whatever scraps of integrity I had left. "This has to end." Her face shifted, disappointment, hurt, anger. "You're still in love with her." I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know anymore. Was I chasing Elena's ghost? Was I chasing Elena's ghost? Or was I just addicted to the chaos Aubrey made me feel alive in? 2 days later, the dean called me into her office. "We've received a report," she said flatly. The world stopped. "About what?" "An inappropriate relationship between you and a student." I went numb. My hands went cold. "It's false," I said automatically. "Completely false." She nodded, typing something. "I'm placing you on administrative leave while we investigate. You're not to contact the student. Or teach. Or be on campus. Do you understand?" I nodded. But everything inside me was screaming. That evening, Claire found the report in my inbox. She didn't say a word. Just handed me my phone and stared at me like I was a stranger. "Is it true?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. She backed away. "You son of a bitch." Then she was gone. I don't know who reported us. It could have been Daniel. It could have been someone who saw the note. It could have been Aubrey herself, trying to make me see her. Or punish me. Or protect me in some backwards way. All I knew was, the life I had built was now in ruins. Because I couldn't walk away from the shadow of a woman I once loved. And because I let her daughter drag me into a storm I helped create. You don't recognize the end when you're in it. It feels like chaos, like noise and panic and confusion. But eventually, everything goes quiet. And all you can do, is sit in the wreckage and try to remember how you got there. That's where I am now. Not a professor. Not a husband. Just a man, alone in an apartment filled with unopened mail and echoes of who he used to be. It didn't take long for the university's decision to come down. They found enough, texts, office visit logs, one anonymous testimony, to sever my contract. Quietly, of course. No press. Just a mutual agreement to part ways, for personal reasons. I cleared out my office at night. I didn't want to see anyone. Didn't want anyone to see me. Claire left the same week. No shouting. No thrown plates. Just a folded note on the kitchen table and a silence that said more than any argument ever could. I don't hate you. I just don't know you anymore. I hope one day you figure out why you did what you did. Claire. I haven't heard from her since. And Aubrey? She disappeared too. Dropped the course. Transferred out by the end of the semester. Not a call. Not a text. Not even a goodbye. For a while, I hoped I'd hear from her. That she'd send another note. That we'd meet in some dark corner of a bookstore or a city street and make sense of the mess we made. But no. She left me in silence, the same way I left her mother all those years ago. Maybe that was her answer. Her revenge. Or maybe she just knew when to walk away. Unlike me. I think about her sometimes. I wonder where she is. If she's okay. If she ever talks about what happened. If she forgave me. If she should. I try not to romanticize it. But I do. I still remember the look in her eyes that night in my office. The vulnerability. The need. The dangerous connection neither of us could control. And I still remember the weight of her hand on mine, the exact temperature of that touch, like it's tattooed on my skin. Some nights, I reread Elena's journal. The same pages. The same underlined sentences. We were never meant to be. But for a little while, we were everything. That line could have been about me and Aubrey, too. History didn't repeat itself. It evolved. Into something darker. Something that cost more. I don't blame her anymore. I don't even blame myself as much as I used to. We were both reaching for something, comfort, clarity, connection. And we found it, briefly, in the worst place possible. But that doesn't make it any less real. If I could go back, would I do it differently? Yes. And no. I'd stop myself from kissing her. I'd draw the line harder. I'd walk away before the fire started. But deep down, a part of me will always remember her, not just as a student, or as Elena's daughter, but as the last person who made me feel alive. Even if she was the reason everything else died. People like to believe that we can learn from our mistakes. But the truth is, some mistakes just teach you what you're capable of. And now I know. Even the most stable man can burn down his own life. Just to feel the heat of something forbidden. So that's my story. Not a redemption tale. Not a warning. Just the truth, told by a man who watched his past and present collapse into each other, and lost everything in the fallout. And if you're still listening, maybe that means you've stood near the edge yourself. If so, take one step back. Please. Because what waits on the other side? It's never worth it. Thank you all for following this journey to the very end. If this story moved you, if it made you think, reflect, or feel anything at all, please like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful, true-to-life emotional stories. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. New chapters drop every week, and every story is a reminder of just how fragile, complicated, and dangerous the human heart can be.